Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, and I've recently returned from commentating the European International Championships, and we saw a very interesting sort of metagame and format, and even the top 8 is really interesting. Pikachu and Zekrom finally had its real kind of breakout. I mean, I think it's done very, very well consistently, and it's won a good amount of like special events and whatnot, but this tournament was where it really dominated the team up meta. 4 of them in top 8, and both of the finalists were running Pikachu and Zekrom tag teams. So today we're going to go over the 7 of the top 8 deck lists. The one deck list I don't have is from top 4 player Alex Silva. Fortunately for you guys, he also has a YouTube channel called Plus Power. So you can go and check out his video when he does make it. I'm sure there'll be some sort of video going on about his deck list and whatnot. I'm sure he'll have a tournament rundown at some point. Fantastic YouTube channel. It's not in English. He is a Portuguese speaker. So, put up with that if you will, but I'm sure he'll have his list up soon. For now, though, we have 7 deck lists, and it's going to be 4 of them on Pikarom. So it's going to be a big old discussion on Pikarom in general. And then Andre's Zapdos Beasts list, and 2 of the 3 Zoroark builds. Alex is being the 3rd to round out the top 8. So we'll at least get some Zoroark action. It feels like the top 3 decks were easily Zoroark, Zapdos, and Pikarom. These are decks that we all said were basically the top 3 coming into this format, and that's definitely turned out to be the case. So let's take a look at these lists, starting off with our new international champion, Gustavo Wada, playing that Pikarom deck list. He's playing 2 Pikaroms, 3 Zapdos, so he has the option to go Thunderous Assault heavy if he has to. He plays no Rescue Stretcher, just the 3 copies of Zapdos themselves. That's a lot though, that's, like the majority of the game, so when you're up against other Zapdos Mirror Match style decks, you can stay non-GX for a big portion, and then, in the mid to late game, drop some big bombs like the Pikarom and the Zeraora and make them have the answer for it, which can be difficult for them sometimes, especially if they're burning Electro Powers to get through your early Zapdos pressure and whatnot. That can be a problem for them. So I like that it has a reasonable amount of non-GX threats out here. Other than that, Zeraora, Tapu Koko GX is actually apparently not a staple, but it's very, very common in Pikachu and Zekrom, but notably not a staple because one of our top 8 lists does not play Tapu Koko GX, which was mind-blowing for me, but there you go. Wobbuffet, the Shady Tail Wobbuffet, has ended up becoming more and more of a standard card, actually, in these Pikachu and Zekrom decks. I think a lot of people were playing it this weekend, trying to deny Ditto, turning into either a Lycanroc or a Muck is such a big deal when you're up against Zoroark players, and it's a huge mirror match card to deny Tapu Koko Prism Star. It's even big against Zapdos decks from using Tapu Koko Prism, because the main answer to Pikaroms a lot of the time is a Tapu Koko GX, and denying Dance of the Ancients from the other Lightning decks is huge. So if you're able to dance, then get Wobbuffet established, it really does ruin their sort of like bounce back potential. You can just run over the board with your Pikachu and Zekrom and not really get answered at all. So this card has proven itself to be incredible, really. You can obviously get around it sometimes by gusting up into the active and whatnot, so it's not like a perfect lock, but it forces the opponent to play really awkwardly around it. So this is like a really solid card in the deck that it turns out the tech is actually way worth it. With the amount of, Lightning and Ditto-based decks, the top 3 decks we just talked about, they all play a Prism Star. Shut them down and they're going to be a lot weaker. So really, really nice one-off card that is probably a staple, I would say, in Pikarom at this point. One Lele, one Let Loose. Let Loose has defined the format like heavily by the looks of things. The way it sort of turned out late in the team up meta, Let Loose is winning so many games off of its own back. Going first has basically never been more important. And whenever you look back on any of the stream games, I would say like maybe 60% of them were based off of Let Loose on like the early turns, and then the opponent can't make a comeback strong enough because the opponent who went first got to attach turn 1 onto their big threat, then Let Loose and just send it their opponent's way and make them draw out of it. Sometimes they just flat out lost, sometimes they were able to mount a comeback, but they're still on the back foot just from going second and whatnot. So Let Loose is nuts, is the bottom line here. It's trying to disrupt Zoroark players, definitely on turn 1 or 2, it's good. and against Pikarom mirrors, against Zapdos. Let Loose is just nuts. So Let Loose is definitely a really, really strong card. It also gives you extra outs against milling archetypes. Mill was kind of on the radar after some recent regionals, so it just makes sense to play Marshadow, really. Lele is pretty obvious as well, but 3 Jirachi is pretty high for Pikarom. Previously, we've seen 2 counts, but 3 is kind of on the high end. Stellar Wish, obviously fantastic for you, giving you defense against opposing Let Loose, which I think is one big reason why we're seeing the Jirachi-based Pikaroms do so much better over Pika Pads, is just because Marshadow is just so good. Oh, sorry, Jirachi is so good at defending against Marshadow, so that's one real big thing. And in general, he's just a combo maker. A lot of the times you're looking for these E-switches, damage modifiers, and Guzmas, so all these things are really important. Stellar Wish helps you get those, so yeah, pretty... I am a real big fan of Gustavo's list over the other lists in the top 8. I think they're all interesting for their own different reasons, but I think Gustavo's... Obviously, it won the event, but I think it makes the most sense in my head. I really like the high ball search of 4 Ultra, 3 Nest, 2 Switch, 2 Rope. Rope's kind of an interesting one. It helps you get around Jolteon, obviously, so there's some value to that, but I've seen a lot of the Pikaroms just go straight for switches. And Escape Rope's actually pretty bad against Zoroark decks, so there's a question mark on what sort of switching counts you want to have in total. But Gustavo's going for 2 Switch, 2 Rope, and 1 Board. I think that's the kind of bit that you'll sort of debate the most. Maybe 2 Board, 2 Switch, 1 Rope is the most common. Maybe just dropping Rope altogether and having 3 Switch. That makes you a little bit weaker to Jolteon, but I think overall... You know, having something like 5 total is going to be pretty standard from most of the Pikaroms that we'll see if they are heavily Jirachi focused. From there, we just have the Thunder Mountain, Viridian Forest being one of the stadiums that we see. It feels like there's kind of a divide between Viridian and Aether Paradise actually popping up in the second place list as well, which we'll get onto in a moment. But Forest obviously helps you get the... Dance of the Ancients and makes you have more searchable energy from Stellar Wish as well, so I like the value there. Gustavo is playing 1 Acerola. This can be a real big deal if you're able to just tank a hit after doing a full blitz onto a bench Pikarom, and then you're able to tank some damage and jump out of the active, especially if you can do some E-switch shenanigans first. It's going to be obviously nuts for you, and it just really defends against awkward starts, and sometimes Zoroark players will try and like 2-shot into the active and have like a 1-shot potential later down the line, and Acerola can really undo those plans, which is cool. For Guzma, I really like, when you're playing such a thick Jirachi focus, I like the heavy Guzma count to make sure you can pick off threats and get the most value out of your Stellar Wishes. 1 Volkner is kind of an interesting one, but you can Lele for it for combo, which is really good. And at the same time, it's just an extra option off Stellar Wish to just guarantee some stuff, so that's really nice. And yeah, 11 energy is kind of what most of the sort of Thunder Buddies-esque builds have gone towards. Interesting that Gustavo's taken out the Jolteon from the list. A lot of decks predating the IC were playing like a 1-1 line of Jolteon to help out against other Zapdos players and whatnot. But instead, he's gone for a more straightforward line. Obviously, Jolteon like initially snuck in because of the likes of Vileplume from stalling players in a few tournaments as well. So with that being less prevalent, it was a risk worth taking, I guess, for Gustavo, and it's obviously paid off. So fantastic build of Pikarom. I think this is the one that naturally most people will be taking on and looking at just because, you know, it's the winners list, so most people take that as the best one for the tournament, so bear that in mind. Let's look at Filip Lechewski's list. I really can't pronounce his name very well. It's long and difficult. I've asked a few people and they've always said it back to me, like some of his German friends. They've said it back to me perfectly, but then what I hear doesn't come out my mouth. So apologies, Philip, but he had a really nice finish, got 2nd place. His list is more Turbo Pikarom focused, I guess you could say. He's playing the 3 Pikarom and only 1 Zapdos split. It plays no Stretcher either, so really the Zapdos is like a 1 energy, like 1 prize kind of deal. He's just trying to take down early Rockruff threats with energies on them, or early Grimer threats, or Dittos, or whatnot. Zapdos can be that 1 energy attachment option for him, but for the most part, it's just all about Pikarom. 3 copies with the Dance of the Ancients, the Coco GX, the Zeraora, 3 Jirachis, 1 Shadow, 1 Lele, 1 Wobbuffet again in his list. So I think that tech card has justified itself just from being in the finalist list to begin with. And this is where you'll see Philip's like main difference compared to all the other Pikarom lists that I've seen like ever, basically. He plays the Oricorio with Vital Dance to help dig out energy cards, and he plays 3 Mysterious Treasure in addition to 4 Nest and 4 Ultra. He is very, very high on Pokemon Search. Gives him really good opportunities to let loose turn 1 and also 1 attack on turn 1. So insanely strong outs to use these powerful abilities on the very first turn to make sure you're hitting Lily turn 1 and you're also using let loose. That's like the desperate combination that's so deadly for Pikachu and Zekrom. That was basically how we saw Philip winning a bunch of his games. He just has an epic turn 1 where he gets a big Lily, thanks to having, you know, now 7 sort of discarding cards to lower the hand size, whilst also search out the Pikachus and the other Psychic Tech Pokemon. And then he just goes, okay, that's the best setup I can get this turn, finally let loose, and go, you'll go. So it's really like the most disruptive build of Pikarom, because you're basically guaranteeing that you'll let loose with 3 treasure, 4 Ultra, 4 Nests, so very like disruptive build from Philip. Still having the high Jirachi count, which I like because it's defending himself against his own let loose, and it's defending against the opposing let loose, so that's pretty cool. The Aether Paradise is an interesting one. It's only a 1-copy stadium, so it's kind of debatable whether or not this is better or worse than Viridian Forest. I think Viridian overall just helps you get that Lily turn 1 and gets you into energies a lot more often, whereas Aether Paradise is much more passive. But at the same time, it's just saying, hey, answer this Pikarom. By the way, it's got an extra 30 hit points. By the way, I've let loose you. So it's giving you more tanking potential, and it makes you a lot less worried about running into the things like just a Riolu and stuff like that. So you can actually go for full blitz with the at least forcing them to have an extra card. It's not just finding, you know, energy Lucario, it's finding them an extra stadium as well. And when they're only limited to like 1 or 2 trades, especially off of a let loose, it's making them have more combination pieces. So I can see the theory behind it, but overall I'm kind of the fan of Viridian. I think it's just a more core, strong card in general. Philip has sort of traded off a lot of speed for a lot of supporter cards. He only plays 4 Lily and 1 Cynthia, which is pretty nuts. I could see you maybe dropping 1 treasure for a second Cynthia or 1 copy of Volkner. I'm pretty surprised he has no option for Volkner at all. He has such searchability for Lele. I would have thought that 1 Volkner would definitely be a big consideration. So I think just guaranteeing access to lightning energies, and you know, if you could go Volkner for like Lightning Ball, that's sometimes just good enough for you, especially if it's like combining with Ultra Ball to bin more lightnings from hand to make your Prism good. Like, it just sounds very strong. So I'd try and work in maybe 1 Volkner, maybe second Cynthia. I think going down to 2 treasures fine, but he made such a strong statement that he wanted to let loose early and whatnot, so that's pretty interesting. He's playing the 3 switch, 2 band, 1 board, so pretty low on the switching cards overall compared to the likes of Gustavo, but it feels like the board count is obviously much lower. They're expecting Absol, that's basically it. And 11 energies again, but he has the searchable energy via Oricorio, so I guess you can see why he's not playing Viridian Forest. It's because he's already, in theory, got searchability via this. So that kind of makes sense. Overall, I would probably cut Oricorio and just swap to Viridian to buy myself a space for a supporter card. That's kind of what I would do. But yeah, he was a big believer in Oricorio, and he was like backing it a lot. So definitely something to bear in mind. Whilst we are on the Pikarom train, I guess I'll go through the other 2 lists. There were 2 that made top 8, Philip and Rahul. Philip Schultz was playing a very, very interesting list of Pikarom. Let me tell you, he's playing no Tapu Koko GX, and this completely blew my mind when I first heard about it. He's also playing 2 Viridian and 12 Lightning, so I think he's playing like the highest count of energy and searchability for energy as well. Not only having the like 1 extra energy, but also 2 stadiums to find energy. He's going crazy for energy. He's never missing those, that's for sure. But cutting a Koko GX feels nuts to me, and I would play one. So yeah, everything else, yeah, he's playing no Zapdos either. It's just Pikarom, go, let loose, good luck. He is maxing out counts of everything, 4 E-Switch as well, so highest possible. He's only playing 2 Jirachi though, which I'm not the biggest fan of, to be honest. I would like a thicker Jirachi count. It's weird, he's got the low Jirachi count in 2, but he has like the 5 switching package to try and like supplement it. So I'd probably drop an E-Switch for a Jirachi, and then it's looking reasonable. He's one of the players who is using Absol, maybe to hurt some other Stellar-Wish potential, so definitely something to bear in mind. But I think overall, drop a Forest or an Energy for a Coco GX and cut a E-Switch for a Jirachi. And I'm pretty happy with this. I think, again, for Cynthia, for Lily, that's actually one of the higher counts that you've seen compared to a lot of other Pikarom builds. I would probably try and work in the Volkner again. I like it as an option, basically, just off of Wonder Tag. So maybe dropping to 3 Cynthia for Volkner would be interesting. But yeah, he has pretty high odds compared to other Pikaroms of drawing out of Let Loose, which is always really cool. So I like that as an option. He only has 2 Jirachi and 3 Guzma though, so that also makes me iffy. I don't know. I feel like I like Guzma in here as well. But yeah, really interesting list. Like, making the statement that a 12th energy is stronger than a Coco GX, that's like an absolute statement. That's absolutely crazy to think about in my book, because it's one of the best answers in Mirror. Basically, for Mirror, he's saying that he can just, like, over-consistency people, I guess. But Coco GX seems really good, so I would probably play one. His is the only Pikarom that isn't playing Coco GX of the top 8, obviously. As we move over to Rahul's, his is more Thunder Buddies-esque. He's still got the Jolteon in here, so maybe this is one of his answers alongside the 2 Zapdos to beat opposing Zapdos players, which is definitely interesting. He's got himself the Absol. He's actually not playing the Wob. Rahul also obviously has a YouTube channel as well, so you can look at his reasoning behind his own deck decisions. He does a whole tournament breakdown. It's great, so go listen to that if you want to. I'll try and remember to link both his and Alex Silver's channels down below. But yeah, you can hear like his full sort of decision-making process around it, but this seems to be like the standard Thunder Buddies list that we knew like coming into the event. This was kind of the counts that a lot of people were on. Double Jirachi, 1 Shadow, 1 Let Loose, 1 Absol, weaving in the Jolteon. So yeah, this is like a super standard list, like coming into the tournament. It feels like everyone else sort of had adaptations for different reasons, but Rahul's was like, this is the tried and trusted build. The 3 Volkners, like, really high. But again, it's just guaranteeing stuff, you know? Guaranteeing is nice. I think in this case, 3 Volkners actually maybe too high. Maybe drop down to like 2 and then add in a Cynthia, because Cynthia is still such a solid option for you. For recycle, I can see you being sat on hands and being stuck with hands, especially energy full hands, and then you're like, ugh, this Volkner is basically getting me nowhere close out of this hand other than finding like a Let Loose. So yeah, he's playing the 4 Ultra 3 Nest. He's playing 1 Rope, 2 Switch, 2 Board. So it feels like 4 to 5 is kind of the count you're looking for movement cards for your Jirachis, even if you're playing only 2 copies. He's playing the 4 Guzma, which I like. I think 4 Guzma, like 3 Guzma feels kind of thin. It feels like you want to have a high Jirachi package if you're playing 3 Guzma. If you're playing the low Jirachi package, I think 4 is pretty staple, to be honest. You absolutely need to make the most value out of your 4 blitzes when you can. So, yeah, once again, Rahul sticking with Viridian. But you can see his full breakdown of his deck list on his channel as well. So, yeah, interesting 4 different builds from Pikarom. The bottom line is Pikarom plus Let Loose equals problems for the opponent. Like, a lot of problems. It's a powerful deck, and it's a powerful strategy that's just cheesing / grinching / just dominating games. Like, it's so weird that you basically just... Your whole deck is built around winning in 3 or 4 turns. Like, that's it. That's all you're trying to boil the game down to. So make good decisions on turns 1 and 2, and you're set up to either win or lose your game. Like, your opponent has to pretty much high roll their way out of that to win, which feels really pretty strong. Andre, though, played Zapdos Beasts, and this was my favorite archetype going into this tournament. It's the deck that I've had the most experience with. And I'm really happy, personally, that I've seen a lot of the Zapdos Beast builds playing double Zeb Striker. This is the thing that basically myself and Adam Hawkins pioneered since the AUIC, where we saw Schultz and Burt Walters. They played a 1-1 line of Zeb Striker. The first thing I did when I saw that list, I was like, I want 2 of these in my deck. And I pretty much campaigned for that this entire time. And it seems like right towards the end of the meta, finally, double Zeb Striker is like standard. So I'm happy that I've had sort of my sort of stamp put onto this deck. And it's the deck that I was personally like rooting for on the sidelines. Obviously, I'm unbiased when I'm doing commentary, but this was the deck I wanted to win. But yeah, Andre's list has a lot of interesting decisions behind it. 9 energy immediately scares me. Like, immediately scares me. 10 already scares me. And there's been literally a number of games where I've won by literally the last energy attachment winning me the game. So that's one thing that I dislike about his build. And 3 Shrine is a big statement. This is like the biggest statement of his list out of every other card. 3 Shrine is like, man, he's out for blood against Zoroark. He's just like, he wants to really just not lose to Zoro like ever. Like, it's pretty insane. I think 2 Shrine is probably my maximum count. Personally, I would instantly go back to 10th energy card if it's me. Because especially the fact that you start burning your rainbows onto Zapdos, that's already like super scary. Plus, he's not playing any Volkner, so he has no search ability for these 4 lightnings anyway. It's like a double whammy that he doesn't play Volkner and he only plays 4 energy. Really, really scares me. So I want to work in a Volkner and I want to work in a 5th energy card straight away. Like the Pokemon, they're non-movers. I think they're all insane. Adding in Let Loose to Zapdos is really, really dirty. It's a great way. I think it's probably better than Absol on turn 1 to deny Zapdos hitting you first in the mirror as well. Like if you go first and Let Loose a Zapdos player, I think that's more detrimental to them than an Absol coming down. So I prefer the Marshadow. I think it's also good against Zoroark, obviously. And I like the 3 Ultra Ball to sort of supplement that. So I really like the high ball search count. I like the Marshadow in the deck. And I think the only real wiggle room... See, I'm sat here saying I want Volkner and I want an energy, but the only wiggle room is 1 Shrine that I can drop, really. So I might have to make my peace with no Volkner in here, but just go back to the 5th energy. Or maybe I would make my peace with the energy and add in the Volkner. But I think this is genuinely like 59 cards perfect of Zapdos at this point. I think you really can't change much apart from the 1 Shrine. And the other card that I want in here, so there's like 3 cards I want in this deck. It's a Thunder Mountain, a Volkner, and an Energy. Those 3 cards. I want all of those cards, but like you just can't find space for it, which is a shame. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of other successful Zapdos Beast builds which completely dropped Shrine this weekend. Most of them, or a lot of them, were adding in Let Loose, and Let Loose seems to be the play just in general. Let Loose turn 1 is just happening all the time now in Standard, apparently. So a lot of them have dropped Shrine altogether, and they just play like extra supporter cards plus Let Loose. And I don't mind that sort of mentality. Let Loose to try and like wreck the opponent, and extra supporters so that you survive a bit more off Muck. So I kind of like that. Andre's list is kind of like the lowest I've seen on supporters for Zapdos like ever. Normally it's like 4-2 plus 1 at least. So if you want to trial a 0 Shrine build, I've actually done that myself in a couple League Cups, and it went okay. I rarely missed them, and I tied to like 1 Zoroark but beat the rest. So you don't get that punished by playing a lower Shrine count. So maybe something to explore for the rest of the team-up meta, but yeah, there's not much time for that. There's basically 1 Bristol regional that I'm attending and maybe a couple of regionals across the globe, but I think it might even be expanded for the US. So yeah, I think this deck can really wiggle around the stadium count as the only real thing. But otherwise, love the list. Let's look at the 2 Zoroarks. Brent Tonneson has been playing a lot of Zoroark recently. He is playing the Rock build, where it's just the 3 stage ones with Zoroark, Lycanroc, and the 1/1 Muck. And it's adding in the sort of thicker 3 line of the Rockruff, and adds in this 1 Lycanroc GX. Twilight Eye is obviously a reasonable option for just setting the opponent back a turn in attachment sometimes. Accelerock obviously hits for weakness on Pikarom for 1-shots, and is an additional option against Zoroarks. Splintered Shards can catch people off guard as well for 1 attachment GX attacks to knock stuff out, especially fighting weak ones. So I think it's justified itself. Just quick note on Alex Silver's list. The actual 60 cards, I can't remember fully, but it did play the Rock build. It was the 3-3 line, or the 3-2-1 line. I can't remember if it played 2-2 Muck. I think it at least played 1-1. Well, it's obviously playing 1-1. And I can't really remember too many other details about it, to be honest. But you can watch back some of his stream games and whatnot and try and decipher his list. And once again, it's going to be on the YouTube channel for him as well at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, it looks like the Zoroark Lycanroc plus 1 extra Lycanroc was probably the best way to go, and I don't mind that at all. I think going forward, that's probably the better way. I actually prefer this to the Zoroark Cario. The main reason is Let Loose is so prevalent that having a 4th stage 1 is more jank for you. So I think just having more chance to develop early Rockruff is just so much better than like anything else you could be doing. And also having this option is just really strong for you against Pikarom, so that you don't have to GX through them every single time. You have a non-GX attack option to one-shot them without the help of Choice Band, which obviously is still played in Brent's list as a 2 count. But yeah, a few other interesting counts. He's playing Baby Buzz, which is pretty interesting. You rarely see this, I want to say. Like a handful of Zoras do play it. He's interestingly not playing a switch card to go alongside this. He's playing a Tapu Koko, though. Baby's a pivot. I think this is like as a pivot for Guzmas and as a pivot to actually let your Sledgehammer work. It's pretty interesting to play this card, and you have the added upside of being able to flying flip stuff to avoid B-strings at times as well. Brent is not playing Kukui, and he's not playing Devoured, so it's not like you just do one flying flip and you're fine against the Blacephalon lists unless you hit a Lele for 150. So it's all very precise if you want to do that, but it's probably difficult to set it all up. So I think it's mostly in here for pivoting options. It may be in here for some small math fixing here and there, obviously. But I like this as like a potential pivot. I think you have to supplement the Buzzwole with either a Switch or a Tantalizer, or I guess this. I'm not too sure if I like the Koko too much, though, because it doesn't evolve and start using Trade. That's my biggest issue with Tapu Koko. Oranguru in here because he's expecting some Mill, I guess, but he's not supplementing it with any Switch card or Tantalizer, so I still think it's a lost cause against Mill, unless you're literally just trying to tie the matchup, I guess, and never take a prize so they can't Lost Purge GX you. But overall, I don't think it's going to be all that important. I personally am so concerned about the top 2 decks, the Lightning decks playing Let Loose. I want to completely strip back Zoroark. This is my own standpoint. Strip back Zoro completely and just play even more Ball Search. Like, he's playing 4-4-4, and that's great. But I want to strip this back even more. I want to cut this, I want to cut this, I want to cut this, I want to thicken Muck, and I want more Ball Search in here. Like, so badly. So I want even simpler Zoroark than ever, basically. That's my mindset going into the next few tournaments. Ditto is staple, obviously. 1-1 Muck. He's playing Psychic Grimer. He's not playing Treasure or anything, so it might be Mind Games that he plays a 2-2, which I actually said in my top 10 video was something that people might be going towards, and Bread's actually done that, which is pretty interesting. 2 Lele. Obviously standard stuff. He's playing Blower, which can get value here and there, but again, I'm strip back Zoro. Just make it, just draw all the cards. Just strip back all the Zoro. Blower's a good card, obviously, and it's helping you contest Stadium War, as well as double Brooklet, which I love, by the way. Brooklet's great. But yeah, I would probably strip back Blower. It's playing the 4-4-4, the 1 Stretcher, the 1 Power Pad, all staple stuff. Brooklet to help you get more Rockruff down is obviously fantastic. It means you can focus your Nest Balls on more Zoruas and Grimers, which is always fantastic. I think it's basically, for me, between Brooklet and Viridian, those 2 cards I think are so strong in Zoroark. So really try and fill your bench turn 1 is going to be fantastic, and Brooklet helps you do that. It also gives him searchability for Sledgehammer, of course, as well. Then he's playing the pretty standard supporter line of Acerola, double Guzma, Judge, Mallow, and 4 Lily. The one thing that's missing here, really, from the support account is a Cynthia. He's playing no Cynthia at all, which is pretty crazy, really. You're just reliant on Lily, but Cynthia isn't really that fantastic on any turn other than turn 2. So, kind of reasonable, I guess. I think its value is pretty high on turn 2, though, so maybe try and wiggle in a Cynthia. If we're doing all this stripping back of, like, tech card, we can probably fit in some Cynthia and some more Ball Search. That's what I would do. He's playing a double Band. Obviously, Band helps you knock out with Claw Slash, Pikaroms. It helps you work some better math in here and there as well. Like, Choice Band's just a reasonable card. It's honestly a card I've been thinking about cutting, though. And this might be me going over the edge at this point, but I think I'm so concerned about Let Loose in Zoroark that I don't want to play any choice bands at all, no Kukuis either, and no Devoured Fields. I think I want to be a strict two-shot deck, but I have the brown stuff that can one-shot the stuff that's weak to me, and still choice band doesn't change any of those maths other than Claw/Exactly, but you already have Dangerous Rogue plus Accelerock, so I'm on the verge of cutting bans, and I might even go down to maybe just one copy, but yeah, I'm thinking about cutting it. Counter gain, obviously pretty much staple at this point. He's playing the 4 DC, the 3 fighting, and the 1 rainbow. Rainbow obviously helps you, like Rainbow Acerilla, pick up stuff that gets trapped, which is always interesting. I feel like Rainbow's a really weird thing. It helps you, obviously. He's playing Rainbow Ace Monkey to try and beat Mill, or at least have a game plan against Mill, which is fair enough, to be fair. But I think you're usually still losing, and the amount that Viridian Forest is seeing play, I honestly just want to play a 4 fighting. I think if I was playing Zoroark, I'd play just 4 fighting overall. I think it's just stronger. You definitely don't want these guys going down to 190 hit points when you're up against lightning stuff, because it helps their modifiers for like Coco GX and Zeraora. So I think Rainbow is actually quite detrimental right now. I think I would just cut Monkey and go to 4th energy, but I'm all about that basic life with Zoroark. I'm so skeptical that you can't draw out of a Let Loose that I want to make it as simple as possible. Ian made a very interesting call with his Zoroark Cario. I don't think I've seen anything like this with Zoroark Cario before. Ian is kind of like it. I think it's his first season playing, or at least it's his first internationals. So it's pretty insane to see him do so well and make this top 8, especially with a deck that I think is very, very unique to him. He's got some counts in here that are very interesting. He's brought back the Zoroark Cario, and we actually featured him on stream, I think, a couple times. And one of the times was basically moments when he was just like benching Riolu and being like, lol, you're playing Pikarom, and I'm just sat here with Rockruff Energy one side and a Riolu on the other, and like the Pikarom players are just put in a horrible spot. It's obviously the initial game plan that was sort of made by Ivanov, and it can just checkmate people at times, just from the offset. So I'm sure there'll be some temptation for people to move back towards a Lucario-based build, alongside Lycanroc. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan, because again, Let Loose is just a tyrant of the format, and giving yourself an extra stage 1 to try and, find combination pieces for is awful. I think if I was playing Zoroark Cario, the first thing I would do would be play a 4th Com, though, because you're playing 22 Pokemon. Com gets so much more value. It just gets way stronger. Ian, again, is playing Oranguru. He's also playing the Switch. So he's got the sort of supplement there. He's also playing Rainbow Ace combo. Seems like it's been popular, but I would still cut it, personally. He's playing Mallow, which is interesting, because he actually plays no counter gain at all. So I don't really know what he's Mallowing for all that much, unless it's just literally Mallowing for like Lucario combo, but it feels like that's way too slow. I would probably cut the Mallow from Iron's list. It doesn't feel all that worthwhile, because the main Mallow target is actually just counter gain plus other. So yeah, that feels strange playing Mallow in this list. The biggest, obviously, like unique change from his build is that he plays no Choice Band or counter gain, and he plays 3 Lysander Labs. Now, the fact that Iron was able to make top 8 without Choice Band gives me the confidence that Choice Band is not mandatory in Zoroark at all. And making that huge statement of Lysander Labs is pretty insane. Making it difficult for Pikaroms to reach on you because you nullify their Choice Bands. Shutting off Zoro Control's Dumbbells, or even just other Zoro Rocks that add in Dumbbells, is pretty cool. Shutting off Wishful Baton from the likes of Quagnag is like backbreaking for them. So this stadium at the right time can be absolutely horrible for decks to really deal with. Obviously, you're shutting down a Skateboard as well to limit Jirachis. So it's like your soft answer. It's similar to how Ivanov played Absol plus 1/1 Muck. Now you play Lysander Labs plus 1/1 Muck, and even if they have Stellar Wish, they don't have a Skateboard. So they're limited to literally their Switch cards and their Ropes and their Guzmas. So they're only ever getting like 1 Stellar Wish off anyway. So high Lysander Labs count is really cool and worth exploring. I think it's actually not that bad. It's a passive stadium, and it doesn't always get the value, and it's not a consistency stadium like Viridian Forest or Brooklet, which is my main like skepticism behind it, I guess you could say. But there's definite value here, and it definitely served Ian well, of course, for making top 8. So really interesting to see such a high count of such a passive stadium that isn't helping you set up at all do so well. The one judge whistle, I like it more than just playing a second judge, but I don't think I actually like it much. I think the one judge, one pal pad's fine. I'd rather this be a fourth com. I think in general you get more value. But I think, yeah, that's it. If you want to play Zoroark Cario, the sort of debate has been made if you want to play Lysander Labs, or if you want to squeeze back in that counter gain plus Mallow. If you're not playing counter gain at all, I think I would just cut Mallow, to be honest, and just, again, play more like Ball Search or whatever. But I think otherwise it's pretty reasonable. Again, Oranguru is in this strange spot where Pikarom's doing so well that maybe Mill's not doing so well, but at the same time, a lot of the Pikaroms have cut Jolteon. It was only Rahul that played Jolteon, so Mill might be coming back towards the Candy Varplume style stuff, so maybe you still need the monkey for Mill. I don't know. It's one of those debates that a lot of Zoroark, basically like half the Zoroark players, I think, played Oranguru from the looks of things. Like a lot of them chose to. So it's one of those weird things. You may just feel like it's mandatory to have enough good matchups to still do well with Zoroark, looking at like Bristol regionals and stuff. But I would probably be the guy who's going to be greedy and be like, ugh, I'm not going to face 3 mil, am I? Like, come on, who does that happen to? But yeah, that's going to round out the top 8, guys. Zoro feels like it's basically back to like the start of the format, where Lightning becomes the two biggest priorities. Interestingly enough, neither of the top 2 lists played 2-2 muck. They just played 1-1 muck. Alex Silva, I can't remember if he played 2-2 or 1-1. I honestly wish I could. But again, I think there's definitely a debate to going towards 2-2 muck now that Zapdos and Pikarom are like your highest priority decks to beat. So I can definitely foresee that sort of creeping in, especially because a lot of the Pikaroms are weaving in the Wobbuffet, and it means that you can't have that double threat without literally 2 physical Grimers. So I think there's definite value in going towards double muck now in Zoroark. I think my main intention is strip it all back, play no choice bans to open up space, so cut Kukui in bans, and that opens up space for 2-2 muck and more draw support. So, draw items, like to find you Pokemon. Like, I'm honestly thinking of weaving in Great Balls. It's the thing I've been doing on stream, like, all the time. And I think Scott Simmons did well with a list that added in Great Balls into his build, so that's something that I want to check on Limitless as well. He lost his winning in to Ian, which is understandable because Scott's list played double counter gain, and Ian was of course playing triple Lysander Labs, so you can't blame Scott for losing that matchup in like a mirror. But he played Great Balls, and Great Balls are so good. You just don't brick as much, which is great. Just get more Pokemon, and you win more. So that's basically the mentality I want to have with Zoroark, because essentially, in my eyes, like Zoroark can beat both the other top 2 decks as long as you survive Let Loose. So gear your deck up to survive Let Loose as much as possible and trim all the fat you can, and you'll just be fine. That's like my main mentality. I think you can beat the Lightning decks as long as you draw out of a Let Loose. That's pretty much how I feel about the archetype. But anyway, that's really just the spotlight of the top 3 decks in the format. They rose to the top in the biggest European event of the year. And all with some differences as well, all with their own unique touches from the different players. So it's a testament really to all these lists that they're all strong in their own regard, and they can sort of stand up on their own with some differences here and there as well. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. What's your favourite Zoroark list? What's your favourite Pikachu and Zekrom list? What do you think's the best play for Bristol? Is Mill still something that we have to be concerned about? Are you going to be picking up one of these decks based on what you think is going to be popular at the tournament? Is there a rogue that pops up thanks to the metagame being so closely knit down to these 3 top archetypes? I'll hear it all in the discussion down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with more Unbroken Bonds stuff, because we need to get back on that hype train again. But that's the EUIC all wrapped up. The team up meta is almost wrapped up as well. One more Bristol Regionals that I'll be attending next weekend, and I've got a double cup this weekend as well. So hopefully we can shut the book on this format pretty quickly and start looking towards the NAIC and how I'm going to make my way back into top 22. That would be really awesome. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.